Today's webinar series is called All in the Stack. Salesforce customers share their AppExchange app stack. So you're going to see tech stacks built solely with AppExchange apps, which is really exciting. This is all based on our tool, allinthestack.com, which you can check out. And today we're going to have customers live talking to you about the apps that they use and why they use them in the use cases. And I'm really excited today to have our host, Geraldine Gray, Salesforce MVP and CEO of Endium. And Geraldine is actually the one who built All in the Stack. So she knows everything there is to know about apps, AppExchange, and of course, this exciting tool. So welcome, Geraldine, and take it away.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our All in the Stack AppExchange webinar for today. We are going to be talking to Bill and Will, and they're going to be telling us about their stacks of apps and the solutions that they provide to their organization. So Bill, why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself, tell us about your role, how many users you have, how long you've been using Salesforce.
Hi, my name is Will, and I'm the Sales Development Manager here at Geopointe. I've used Salesforce for 2 years. Previously, I was on NetSuite and always wanted to transition over to Salesforce. Did 8 years of that, and then we have approximately 40 Salesforce users and growing. We have a new SDR team member starting tomorrow. So I started with Geopointe with the goal of building our sales development team, and essentially the position involved to evaluating apps and operations.
Perfect. So you're going to be showing us a stack that is from a salesperson's point of view, correct?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. And Bill, can we see Bill's smiling face? Oh, there we go. Oh, sorry, Bill, yes. Bill, tell us a little bit about yourself, your role in the company, how many users you look after, and how long you've been working or using Salesforce for.
Sure. My name is Bill Powell. I was previously a Salesforce user as a sales rep, outside sales rep for about 4 years. I switched to the admin life almost going about 2 years ago. So I've been on the Salesforce platform for a combined about 6 years. My role in the organization is a Salesforce administrator for McGrory Glass, or an architectural glass manufacturer that did not previously have an administrator. So it was interesting to take the org over here. And we have about 35 users, 36, depending on what time of day it is.
Okay. And you've been using Salesforce for how long, I'm sorry?
So 4 years as a user and 2 years as an administrator, so a combined 6 years.
Okay, you're an old hand. Okay, so thank you. We're going to start with Will, and Will's going to tell us about how he uses Salesforce, his Salesforce AppExchange stack. Will, over to you.
Thank you. So first, what I'd like to do is just kind of do a brief intro of all the tools and talk about a day in a life scenario on how we use these tools. So I was just reflecting on just what the most important thing for me and my team here, and time, or better yet, more time is probably the most important thing to me at this time. More time to be productive at work, more time with my family, more time to live. I mean, time has just been utter importance in my life right now. So all the tools that I use here do exactly that. These are sales productivity tools that just gives me more time and the team more time to do things. So I do work for Geopointe. So basically, here's my pitch. Geopointe, puts Salesforce data on a map. It's also a very great sales productivity driver, trip planning, marketing campaigns, operations, demand gen, the list goes on. It saves us lots of time. SalesLoft is another great tool we love to use. Basically tripled our productivity using cadences and giving us that visibility, single pane of glass. We use Salesforce in sales here as a system of record. SalesLoft is our system of operations. So the other tool that we love to use is ZoomInfo. the data provider. It just helped cut deduping, research, enhancing data by like 50%. It's an amazing tool. We love using them. And I'm sure everyone here has challenges with the whole deduping process. Well, ZoomInfo helped us tremendously. A new tool we're using right now is Level 11. We love it. It's a sales management system tool, helps kind of keep it all together. One of the things I really love about using apps, it really changes the way we think and how we run our company. With Level 11, our mindset from start focusing on activity-based selling, keeping focused on KPIs that are leading indicators rather than lagging indicators, really was a game changer for us. And for collaboration, we love using Stack. I'm sure everyone is familiar with that, and Taskgrade to help manage our tasks and projects. Okay, so that's kind of a brief intro. Now I'd like to jump into a day in life scenario, how we use our sales and marketing tools to execute on a world tour. So recently, we attended the Chicago World Tour in June. My team was tasked to drive attendance to a customer appreciation event after the show, as well as our SDRs reaching out, following up with new leads that came out from the show. So let's talk about the preparation. As we started to execute on the show, we use Geopointe to visualize all prospects, customers within a 50-mile radius of the conference, and added them to a marketing campaign using Pardot, and also to invite them to our happy hour after the show. So Geopointe also has a new data offering that allows us to import new targeted accounts and contacts from ZoomInfo, which is really cool because it allowed us to also invite net new prospects to the event. So new potential. And of course, Geopointe for trip planning for our team members that are out there to meet with customers and all that cool stuff as well. Okay, so now after the event, so we had a great event. After the event, once all the imported leads are done, we use Pardot to send out an email campaign out. And Pardot also helps assign the leads and contacts to our sales development and account executives for the post-event follow-up. And actually, our SDRs and account executives use SalesLoft afterwards to reach out for the event leads. We have event-specific cadences, relevant information or relevant messaging. Really a great tool to personalization at scale. So we love using SalesLoft as well for that follow-up. So let's just real quick here talk about the results. I can safely say, because I started Geopointe with none of these tools. All we had was Salesforce. We love Salesforce. But with these tools, I'm very confident to say that we tripled our productivity, hands down. In preparation of this webinar, I had a couple of weeks ago at a team meeting. I asked the team, would you exchange these tools for a 10% pay raise? And the overall consensus was not over my dead body. So that's my little closing right there.
So let me ask you a question. Yeah, let me ask you a question. Tell me how you use Slack and Salesforce together, because some people don't know what Slack is. Some people love it. Some people hate it. How do you make Slack and Salesforce work for the Geopointe team?
We're using Slack as more of like a communication for teams and rooms, not so much, integrate within Salesforce, but just main way to communicate, onboard, training, collaborate. We do our one-on-ones on Slack as well with screen share, et cetera. So that's primarily how we're using it in my department. Okay.
And tell me about Taskgrade, because we use Taskgrade and we have lots of customers that use Taskgrade, and everybody seems to use it for something a little bit different. So do you use Taskgrade for internal projects? Do you use it for onboarding your customers? Do you use it for managing Dreamforce, organization? How do you guys use Taskgrade?
Great question. I love time management. I'm crazy about it. I use Toggle to manage my times to the second of what I do every day, so I can manage. I use Taskgrade to manage my daily tasks that I have to do throughout each day, because in my role, I tend to go out in different directions. So I have daily tasks going on with Taskgrade. I use Taskgrade for onboarding. So we have a new team member coming in starting tomorrow. So I use Taskgrade to onboard, make sure they have all the office furniture supplies they need. I have our Salesforce admin also in that project, creating all their accounts for Salesforce, etc. It's just a great collaborative, and I have some office managers collaborating, making sure we have keys, making all that. So Taskgrade is amazing to really bring in different people together to finish a project. So I use it for that regard. And I also use it to do something like for future, like if there's a long-term type of project to kind of make sure I'm on track. Things that are kind of a long-term project rather than this needs to be done at this date. This is kind of like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Super awesome. I live in Taskgrade all day long. I love it.
So we use Taskgrade a lot as well. We use it for day-to-day tasks. We use it for tasks within projects. We have templates for Taskgrade. So same use case for onboarding people. Everything gets put in Taskgrade, and then it's very easy to work out whether or not they have their login and their not necessarily keys to the office, but their business cards and all these pieces. So it's one of the tools that we absolutely couldn't live without. Anything that we've missed? Anything you want to wrap us up with before we move on to Bill? Because he has a really interesting story as well. No,
I'm just I'm very excited. I love using apps. Again, I want to emphasize that it changes your company, the way of thinking. Every new app you use just changes your mindset. All these companies are experts in what they do, so it's almost like it's really fun. So we're going through a great phase right now with level 11. We're also using a company called Full Circle to help align our marketing and sales efforts, and just adding a new app just really changes everything. It's really great. I encourage everyone, use your apps, use Geopointe.
Yeah, thanks for throwing that one in there. Okay, enough of the advertising, because otherwise we're going to wait for 3 days to say buy one, get one free. Bill Powell. Bill, tell us, remind us again about your role at McGrory Glass, and tell us all about your stack, because you have a great story that lots of admins are going to be keen to hear.
Sure. So I'm the Salesforce administrator for McGrory Glass. Now, to give you some background, I'm also part solution architect, part fixer of everything that's broken for the most part. So I'm the solo admin here. I'm the only one. I'm the only one that works in Salesforce. So I kind of get to pick and choose what happens for the most part. So my stack's kind of an evolution of when I took over. So I took over the org here last year. McGrory has been using Salesforce for probably about 12 years, for quite a long time. They started out Professional Edition, Service Cloud, neither of which were working for us. So we've upgraded from there. We've gone to Enterprise, we've gone to Sales Cloud, which is a lot better. We're more sales and project management focused, and we're an architectural glass business, which is a pretty complex sales cycle. So when I took the org over, looking at on the configuration part of the stack, to configuration and operations and sales. When I took it over, there never had been an admin for a 12-year-old org. So you can imagine what that must have looked like. And at the time when I took over, there was probably about 32 users. Now there's 35, 36, but all 32 users were system administrators. So now you can really imagine what it looked like after 12 years of clutter. So I didn't know how to start. So I literally took a week and went through every single piece of the org and said, okay, here's all my notes, here's what's wrong with it, and I ran out of paper. So my first trip was, okay, let's use Field Trip. Everybody recommended this app. I had used it before and loved it. I went through and looked at all the different objects and saw there was just random fields everywhere for everything. And I would assume that 30 administrators we had at some point created fields that were helpful to them and no one else. So I used Field Trip to kind of determine, what do I want to attack first? And which also helped me determine pick list values and things like that, what I need to trim down, what fields what do we need to get rid of, what are people making that they shouldn't be, what kind of values are people using and not using. So that was kind of my Bible when I took this org over to say, okay, what do I need to attack first? for data integrity and things like that. So that was part one. That took quite a long time to go through all the data and kind of clean that up, clean up some relationships, some fields and things like that. So then once I took a look at it and realized the complex sales cycle we had a lot of duplicate opportunities and duplicate records in general, just because of the complex sales cycle we had. So I had to go make some custom objects, make a lot of things to make it more in line with our sales cycle. So, I asked myself, well, how do I get these things connected with rollups? And unfortunately, with standard objects, as we all know as administrators, they're not fun to play with if you're trying to make them a child of a custom object. So I sought out Rollup Helper that helped us with that, to make more dynamic relationships between custom and standard objects and get the data that you needed. That's how we use Rollup Helper. And in fact, today I'm working on another Rollup Helper project for custom objects that's really helpful. So that took care of the data. So the field trip took care of cleaning up, and the Rollup Helper helped connect the data, connect the objects together the way I needed them to be more in line with our sales process. So then the graphics pack was more aesthetics, right? So we had some crazy formulas in our org that just said do not quote or whatever, but there was just these big red letters across all our screen. Don't quote these people for this reason, that reason, or another. So I said, that's not right. I'm going to make something a little bit prettier, a little bit more simple. I'm going to put green checks and red stop signs. I mean, as goofy as it sounds, I'm like, this is the way I want it. I want it to look cleaner and not just this big mess. So graphics pack helped with that. Also help create some nice little images for our custom tabs and our custom apps and things like that. So I'm also very picky and have control issues over my org. I'm sure all the admins can concur with that. So the graphics pack helped clean it up a little bit. So the left side of my stack is more the structure. It was the infrastructure I wanted to build with the org, taking it over, cleaning it up, and saying, okay, well, now I built this concrete foundation to start building on. I want to future-proof it, and I want to create. We've aligned sales in our. We've aligned sales with the way I want the data entered. And coming from a sales background, I know what I wanted as a salesperson. So I put a sales manager hat on for a second and say, okay, well, if these are my reps, what would make my job? If I was a rep here, what would make my job easier? So I started looking at sales tools. And one of the reasons they brought me on to McGrory here was, hey, look, we have a very complex product we built. We make architectural glass, which there's not many products, but can have thousands of configurations per product. So we looked at different quoting tools. We looked at different CPQs, and we use Salesforce CPQ for that. We previously had no insight into the demand we were quoting. We looked at samples we were running and things like that, but that was when the customer was already interested in us. We didn't have anything to say, okay, well, what's the demand coming in from a quoting standpoint? We run a lot of quotes in the construction and architectural glass business. So we went with CPQs because of our really complex quoting process. There's a lot of different moving parts. And it was a challenge for me to learn the glass business and CPQ at the same time, but that's a story for another day. But it's really helped us to really dig deep on our quotes and get those perfect configurations. So now we can look at, what's the demand for this type of glass, or this part, or this type of layer, or all these different nuances that go into building just a single pane of glass, which doesn't look like much. There's a lot to it. Now we have perfect insight to that, and it's not only that, but it's a lot simpler for my reps and my project managers and our quotes. Before it was a guessing game. Now everyone does it the same way. It's flawless. It's brand centric now because we can brand our templates, our quote templates. Everything looks perfect, like it was the way it was meant to be, instead of just kind of being a mess and being a guessing game. Data.com we use for a lot of different reasons, mostly just to help clean up our data. That's an ever ongoing process. And that's pretty self-explanatory with Data.com. A lot of us know what it is. And then finally, this is this app has helped me out a lot. It's a former positions. It's very simple, very small, very lightweight app. But in our industry, in the architectural business, designers and decision makers change jobs a lot. And there's a lot of people involved in the process of making a decision. So, my AppExchange strategy is, number one, can I do it for free? I hate saying it, but it's the truth. I can do it for free. And it's something so simple that I can just download off the AppExchange and not do it myself. There's a lot of apps out there that are very simple that you could probably do yourself, but the time that you're going to take to do something more productive, that's worth more, in my opinion. So I always go to the AppExchange. I mean, in fact, my favorites list is probably way too long for stuff I want to test, but we'll Former Positions does is will help you track your contacts. So for instance, if Jane Smith works at Architect A and then Jane Smith goes to Architect B, as soon as you change her contact within the account, it creates a record and tracks where they've been. It's kind of like LinkedIn when you looked at their history, where they've been, their job titles, how long they were there. It does that. It has a similar process to that. So we talk to people all the time in our business, so we want to know where they've gone and where they've been, and what projects we've worked on with them before. So that was really helpful, and that's pretty much my stack.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about your CPQ setup. Have you taught yourself how to use it?
Yes, there's a lot of long nights, a lot of studying. So our CPQ setup is a little bit more complex. So a standard CPQ setup is, a product like, for instance, a computer. Here's your hard drive. Here's your graphics card. Here's your memory. We're a little more complicated because there is a lot of nuances to glass. So we use a lot of configurations in Salesforce CPQ. So for instance, when you go into our CPQ, you may only have 20 products, which isn't a lot. But within those 20 products, they're configured even further to have, okay, well, what's your thickness? And based on your thickness, this is the type of finish you can have. And based on the finish you have, this is the, the max sheet size, and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and it goes on. And so, which, our quotes can go 100 lines or more per bundle, so to speak. So we've had to find ways to trim that down and be very, very creative with CPQ.
And how long did it take you to implement? Do you remember? We're talking like weeks, months, years, minutes? Probably not minutes.
We started in Professional Edition, which it does run in Professional Edition, but I highly recommend doing it in Enterprise if you can. So if I take that time away and trying to upgrade us from there, I'd say probably about 5, 6 months. And I think a lot of it to do with me learning the glass business. But it's really imperative with CPQ to understand your products 100% before you start doing the work, because going back and changing things is cumbersome, but it's definitely worth the time. So I would say, it probably took us about 6 months.
Okay, and one more question. So before Salesforce CPQ, one more question about CPQ. Before Salesforce CPQ, how long would it take the team to put together a quote?
It didn't take long, but it wasn't right. And that was the biggest problem. It wasn't right. Maybe 5 minutes for a quote. Now it might take 10, or not 10, maybe like 6 or 7, but we had no insight. Nothing was right. Nothing was brand centric. And the data never matched up. So, and since everyone was an administrator, we had active products, inactive products. Nobody knew what was happening. So with CPQ, everything's streamlined, everything's brand centric, and everything's correct, which was the most important part of us to go into that.
Okay, interesting. And so, so be prepared, and then you have the ability to track the number of quotes that are going out, just versus throwing them over the fence and hoping for the best. Absolutely. Okay, a couple more questions. You mentioned your app favorites. Okay, so remind us what that means, because I'd forgotten all about that feature on the AppExchange.
So your app's favorite on your AppExchange is simply when you're logged in and you look at an app, there's a little heart you can favorite and put it in your list. I call it my shopping list. So, if I'm looking for a new functionality or something like that, I revert back to my favorites list and I go look at different apps for different things. And I say, okay, I wanted to try this out. And it's right there on your list. So you don't have to say, okay, what was that app I was talking about with like Taskgrade is my favorite lists for something to try someday. So it's simply just your literal favorites list from apps that you've seen that you like, that you want to test out someday. Okay, so Taskgrade is in your dream stack. What else is in your dream stack? Do you remember? Let's see. Taskgrade is in our stack. Pardot is in our stack, dream stack. And there's a couple other ones too. I can't remember off the top of my head. We have mapping tools in there. We used to use mapping tools. We got away from it. We want to go back to it as we grow. And there's a bunch of admin happy things in there to make my life easier. But I can't recall them off the top of my head, to be honest with you. Okay, no, that's good. Any closing thoughts before we move on to our last piece of the webinar? What's your advice for people putting together their stacks or thinking about how their business processes could be benefited by Salesforce apps? I would just say have a good strategy. You could be like me and have a stack of 40 apps you want to try, or have a more firm strategy of, when you want to use AppExchange apps, how you want to use them, when you want to go to the AppExchange. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I try free, and if I can do it quicker on the AppExchange versus me spending, even if it's an hour to build something simple, I'd rather download it, install it, and be done with it. So just have a firm strategy of how you're going to use the AppExchange, because otherwise you can get really lost as like a kid in the candy store trying to find all these cool apps you want to use.
And all the cool apps that you have to manage once you've implemented them, because there is a little bit of kid in the candy store, lots of shopping and not necessarily lots of getting stuff done if you implement too many at once.
Exactly.
Okay, so Amanda, please remind us how other people can join in and how they can build their own stack.
Yes, thank you. So check out allinthestack.com and build your stack. When you build it, you can hit tweet, and it will add the My Stack Rules hashtag. And what we're doing actually for this month through early September is you can get your stack put on our PlayBuzz quiz if you tweet it, and the top 5 most voted stacks will get a session at Dreamforce. So you could get a free pass at Dreamforce potentially if you tweet your stack before September 2nd, just like Will and Jason and Bill and all the great folks that have done that already. So definitely get doing that. And either way, if you build a stack and you tweet it, we'd love to have you on a future webinar talking about your stacks the way Will and Bill did today. So keep tweeting it and sharing like you already are, and we'd love to have you next time. Our webinars for All in the Stack happen every first Wednesday of the month. So our next one is September 6th, then October. November, we have Dreamforce, and we will be having an All in the Stack session with our winners of the PlayBuzz quiz. So definitely join us for all of that. Thank you.
Brilliant. And one more thing, we're going to throw in one more app. So one app, 1 minute, I'll tell you an app I was using this morning. We use DocuSign. DocuSign is integrated with Salesforce, so we can send this is what we do at Endium, we can send contracts and other legal documents to go from Salesforce to our customer. It takes all the data from Salesforce, customizes it into the template, sends it to the customer, they sign the document, we sign the document, and then it comes back and gets updated in Salesforce and kicks off the workflows of what we need to do next on the project. So it might be send an invoice for a deposit, or it might be set up the first meeting with the customer, for their kickoff call and such like. One thing that I've discovered recently about DocuSign is that it also integrates beautifully with Gmail. So if you have DocuSign, Gmail, and Salesforce, it saves tons and tons of time. So that's my one app, 1 minute. Amanda, what's next? I think our next webinar is first Wednesday of September, right?
It is, and we're excited to have 2 more customers talking about their tech stacks and have you back, Geraldine, to facilitate that conversation. And thank you guys all for joining today. We look forward to seeing you next time, and make sure you tweet your stacks, and you can be just like Bill and Will on our call. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Bill. Great job. So interesting to hear and learn all about your apps. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.